Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this afternoon's Big Shrink. We missed you all last week because of the New South Wales public holiday, but we are back and we are here to dive back into all the big juicy issues that we love so much. My name is Ash King. I'm the content manager at the Indigo Project, and as always, I'm joined by the founder and head psychologist of the Indigo Project, Mary Huang. Hi there, Mary.
Hey, I've missed seeing you.
Yeah, you too. Missed our little Monday chats.
I know. Good download. It's almost like a second therapy session that I get every week.
Yeah, it's nice actually. And I always find myself bringing up tidbits that I've learned from you over these courses, imparting the wisdom onto others. How's your week been this week?
Yeah, well, actually, the last couple of weeks, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. I had a really beautiful therapy session today, and I was exploring, I guess, my fears of being a burden on others. Should I share and be vulnerable? And yeah, I guess it's something that I've been working on for a while, just practicing vulnerability. And I just keep feeling like it never gets any easier, but you know, it's so necessary. And there's been a couple of times where I have almost like, I guess, been forced to practice vulnerability because things have been so overwhelming. I've been coming to some really hard deadlines with my book and really, really struggling with my sense of self and feeling very critical and lost and alone and wanting to give up on everything. And so, you know, reaching out and just like even sending some text messages or, you know, having some big cries and talking about them afterwards or crying with someone has actually been, you know, experiences that have brought new, I guess, insights into, you know, what I've like lost and longed for a long time. So, you know, you be vulnerable and it opens up new doors and avenues for exploration, like not all of them easy, but there's this kind of tug of war between being nourished and just being uncomfortable at the same time.
Yeah.
And how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I've had some interesting therapy sessions as well. Uh, Still deciding whether I'm connecting with my therapist. And I, I often ask myself, you know, whether it's me, like maybe I'm too preoccupied with wanting to be seen in a certain light. So, you know, maybe even not that keen to be vulnerable or selectively vulnerable, which is like, oh yes, I'm comfortable talking about this stuff and this deep stuff. I can go there, but maybe some other areas I'm not that keen to look any deeper in and not really want to let other people see.
Well,
So,
here's the thing. I mean, you know, I think being in a therapeutic relationship, like I've been in mine for over 5 years now, and sometimes I'm still afraid to open up about certain things, and he's always learning new things about me all the time. So, you know, it's like a relationship. I think we have to learn how to trust each other, and that just comes with like, you know, that relationship and holding space and, you know, slowly allowing ourselves to be seen, which is so tough.
hmm. And I think that, like you said, you know, you're kind of like peeling back layer upon layer, and you never actually get to like, oh, there it is. Like, there's me, the middle, the center. You know, it's just always peeling back new things or finding yourself like with the old skin attached again. And you're like, oh, I thought I got rid of this. So like, I thought that we went deeper than this before, but it's not really a linear process.
It's not at all. And I think there's always space for deepening. But what I enjoy that my therapist says is like, you know, if you're going too deep sometimes and it's getting a bit murky, just go outside and like sit in the sun and like pick flowers and go and sit on the swings. And, you know, you got to just call yourself out, because I think we can take the inner work very, very seriously, and so we should. But there are times when we just need to play and let go and just forget about like our inner dramas
Mm-hmm.
and just find the, I guess, the lighter aspects of our inner child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, easier said than done a lot of the time too. I've recently just joined Twitter, and I was like, wow, If you want to
Wow.
do something really bad for your mental health, join Twitter. Like it's not like I'm not already on all the other platforms, but I think Twitter is just a new kind of beast where it's basically just built off, like, I guess, the sharing and then commenting on different people's ideas and opinions. And it's just so full on. You can get really dark really fast on there. So just trying to be able to balance that out with a little bit of lightness is
It's
very,
almost like a bit of a competition on Twitter. That's why I've stayed off it, because I just don't think my brain could cope with that.
well, mine's not coping with it, but I keep going back for more. So I don't know what that says about me. But
We're
maybe
all
we should
learning.
look. We're all learning, guys. We're all on this path together. So let's
Learning through experience.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yes, someone's joining in on the comments saying yes, Twitter is intense. It really is.
Stay away.
Yeah, look, if you're dealing with some hectic shit at the moment, probably don't join Twitter as like an aside from that. So let's get into our topic of the day, which is a huge one and evidently not something that we can completely get to the bottom of in 25 minutes or so, but something that's probably really salient to a lot of people at the moment as we start to emerge from our ISO cocoons back into the world, back into, life as it was before or life as it is now, which is totally different. And where our power lies in finding a path for ourselves that's going to give us purpose, give us meaning, and make us really proud of the sort of life we're living. So, I mean, where do we start?
Well, I guess, just building on what you're talking about, I think what we've all been through is something that a lot of us sometimes just think, when we go through difficult stages of our lives, we often just want to forget about it and, just push it aside and never think about that period ever again, because remembering it is painful and uncomfortable. But when we can actually bring ourselves to reflect upon difficult experiences, I really believe that there is a lot of information there that can help us to create meaning so that we can not only heal from that experience, but to glean valuable insights about how we want to move forward. So, when I think about the idea of, we've all seen the workshops, creating a new life, starting afresh, clean slate, all of that. And it sounds very enticing, especially at the beginning of the year when we're just like, we want to leave it all behind. And I think that it can set us up a little bit for a sense of maybe false promise or maybe a bit of disappointment, because I feel like, our life experiences really should be the fodder for us moving forward. And our ability to create meaning from these challenging experiences is for us to be able to ask ourselves questions like, well, how do I want to feel? And what was it about those experiences that made me feel a certain way? What can I learn from that pushed buttons, that, was emotionally some soft spots for me? And when I work with clients, and especially in my own life, I've been able to recognize that there is a depth that can come when people take challenging experiences and incorporate them into a new way of living. For example, when I work sometimes with clients who have had mental health issues around certain, like, depression or suicidal ideation, and they've been able to take some of those experiences, process them, look at them really carefully, and then use them as an experience or a platform to be able to, I guess, in a way, give back in a way that they feel like other people may not have the strength to do that, but then they themselves have had the courage to look at themselves in that way and share their experiences. And I think that's when it can get really powerful, and where we can live a life of meaning and purpose. That said, I think meaning and purpose are also huge, huge terms that people are, and myself included, can be very intimidated by. So we think purpose in life, and I think what comes to mind for me is like, I've got to change the world. I've got to fix, so I've got to have the solutions to huge problems of social injustice, of like discrimination, of inequality. And I think that there are pathways for us to understand that we all have different purposes, in a way that we can also think about our relationships. And a purpose can be as simple as, I'm going to be a really good friend to my best friend today, and I'm going to send her a text message and tell her how much I appreciate her and how grateful I am for her. And there are these realms of, kind of experience within our families, obviously within ourselves, within our communities, within our workplaces, within our societies. And I, I feel like we should allow ourselves to work at the areas in which we feel comfortable with, mm-hmm. initially, as we potentially, can slide into bigger realms of thinking and experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that very thing lately, especially with the state of the world at the moment, and just recognizing that there are so many people who are angry and so many people who are suffering, and, rightly so, like not rightly suffering, obviously, but rightly angry at the injustices and the sort of unfair state of the world. And it can be overwhelming when you're thinking of purpose, to think, I need to do something about it, which is great, I guess, to sort of motivate you to help where you can. But sometimes when you feel like the task is way too big, you actually feel quite impotent, and feel like maybe you can't make a difference, or you can't do anything. So the idea to kind of zero in and get nice and specific about how we can, I guess, firstly find a purpose and find something that like lights us up, or charges us up with some sort of intensity, or sense of meaning. Like, and that's hard as well. Like, a lot of people that I speak to, they're like, oh, I'd love to have a purpose, but I don't really think I've got one. Like,
well, first and foremost, I mean, our purpose is in the here and now, being in our bodies and learning how to accept this roller coaster, overwhelming, exhilarating ride of being a human being. And that is a huge task in and of itself. So, we want to be able to find purpose in a way that we feel comfortable with, because if we think about, when I think about the clients that are coming into the Indigo Project, so many of us, we're already loaded to the brim, holding all our emotional experiences from day dot. We're holding space for all the people around us and our roles and responsibilities. And I think sometimes the first step of creating meaning and purpose is creating space in your life for the ability to even think and dream and visualize and play. Sometimes we've got actually holding so much that we have to ask ourselves, well, what am I letting go of to make space for something that is new? And that is a massive process in and of itself, because then we can truly understand what is at the heart of our intention. So anything that we do can be considered sometimes a distraction from the inner work. And going deeper into that, we can actually find, well, I'm holding too much space for this. There's people in my life that maybe, I need to have a bit more space from. I'm taking too much on at work. there's things that I'm actually like still just like a pack horse holding through my life. And so how can I actually let go of those things so then I can actually discover what I truly need? And those are some of the difficult experiences that we've been through. How do we create a life of meaning and purpose if we don't actually know what we need? And everyone's needs are completely different.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the confusing part as well with that is that we're taught that certain things are important and certain things aren't, particularly, this idea that, you explore a lot about the importance of space and taking time and what you can learn and grow from in those moments of pause and stillness. Our societies are so busy and so demanding, and our relationships are so intense and also so demanding that we think that the purpose must lie in all those demands and all of those things that we need to be doing or we think we should be doing. And so even the idea, the concept of taking space to learn what, our values are or learn what might be meaningful to us seems a little bit confronting.
Absolutely. And bringing up the idea of being able to understand your values, we don't necessarily just look at a whole list of values and pick them out. We look at our past experiences and we ask ourselves questions like, what were experiences that brought me joy, that brought me happiness, where I felt proud of myself, where I felt fulfilled, where I felt satisfied? And we go into those experiences and we mine them for like, well, who was around me? How did I feel? What needs of mine were being met at that time? And those are the things that I think give us those true, I guess, nuggets of gold when we can then formulate a vision. And, our values would change over time. Our priorities will change over time. And I think we're also have this expectation that we can have it all and we should have it all and we should have everything in our lives as a 10. But I think only each individual knows what is truly important to them. If given a list of priorities such as your health, your finances, your relationships, your creativity, your career, travel, whatever it is, I think we need to be able to choose just a few of those things to focus on, as opposed to spreading ourselves so thin that we feel overwhelmed by the whole prospect of designing a life of meaning and purpose.
So, how would you recommend, say, someone is watching at the moment and going, well, I sometimes find it hard to untangle what is really meaningful to me, and the things that, I have maybe been conditioned to believe is meaningful, or the things that I think should be meaningful that, maybe haven't really resonated that much with me in the past? Like, how do you tease those two apart?
I think the main word that you've used is should. And if there's anything that has the should before it, like I should be successful, I should be fit, I should be this, or should be that, kind of indicates something that is an obligation or a responsibility, as opposed to something that is truly a deeper need within. And we've talked a lot about connecting with feelings, and I think that's such an important part of designing a life and designing a vision, is to start to learn how to pay attention to your feelings. And we all have them, we just don't really pay attention to them. But if we can look back on our past experiences and we can feel when we were genuinely feeling happy, and we can look back on past experiences and we can sort of tease apart some of the values that we've been given in different areas of our lives from people outside of us. So we can look at, for example, our family. What are my family's values? What did they say was important to me as I was growing up? Let's look at the content that you consume, media, the advertising, whatever you watch, whatever's on your feed. what are some of the messages that I think that is giving, that is giving me about what I should do or should be? My friends, like, what do they think are important? What are they all doing with their lives, and what are they placing importance on? And as we start to kind of understand all these different values that we're kind of surrounded by, culturally, socially, familial, friend, and we can write these down and we can have a sense of, well, how does that feel if that was something that I wanted to incorporate into my life? Like, if I imagine it, do I kind of get excited by a life where I'm like in a zippy sports car and flying around all the time and meeting lots of people and shaking hands and kissing babies? Does that vision actually give me like butterflies in my stomach and make me feel light and bright and excited? Now, am I starting to think of ideas, or do I just feel a bit flat and kind of apprehensive about it? And I guess the interesting thing about that is sometimes when we are kind of looking at vision, it's kind of also normal to feel a little bit afraid and a little bit scared and a little bit apprehensive. But I think there's a nuance in the feeling where we can kind of go, oh, that just sounds like the voice of my mom telling me what to do and what I should be. And, that's just because I want my friends to like me. And, it's hard, like trying to piece apart our intentions. But, well, I think the body is our best instrument in being able to tell us from how we feel now and how we felt in past experiences, what is it that we need, what is it that we value, and what are we placing importance on. And sometimes we have to look at what we do every day and what we do when we have a spare moment, or we have the weekend free and we have a week free. What do we do on our holidays? Where do we choose to go? If I were to like pick up a magazine off a rack, like, which ones would I be choosing? And we make choices every day that indicate what our priorities are and what we get excited by. So I think it's also about just being a little scientist in our lives and delving a little bit into our everyday actions and what intention is behind them.
I think that's a nice approach to sort of being a bit of an investigator, and not having too much pressure, thinking that, looking for purpose and meaning means looking for really huge things. Like, it doesn't have to be a huge experience or a huge idea or something that you want to try that can overtake your whole life and send you in a completely new direction. Like, sometimes it's just about, little tiny bits and pieces that you pick up on the way, or things that you find yourself getting excited about, and you're like, oh, like, that's interesting. It's just like one little thing here and there. And I think that what's cool about the world now is that we have the opportunity to piece together our life in a kind of extraordinarily mosaic type way. You don't have to choose one thing and commit to it forever. We're allowed to change our minds. We're allowed to want to do multiple things at once. Those things don't always have to go together, and we explore this as well. These are people think that as psychologists, we need to be interested in certain types of things and talk in certain types of ways and have certain types of friends. And, it's just not really the case. And I think that when you let people be their whole entire selves and you connect with people on that level too, you realize that we all have so many deeper facets of ourselves, that things that light us up and things that make us passionate. It doesn't have to be, like, really super altruistic, saving the world type causes. It can be simple as like making a cake for a friend, dropping it by their house and letting them know how important they are to you, like you said before, or doing something nice for yourself and recognizing that there's purpose in cultivating a great relationship with who you are.
Well, as I get older, there's this deep feeling within that we're returning, I'm needing to return back to a life of simplicity. And, I have wanted everything in my life to be like, I wanted success, I wanted this, I wanted to make my parents proud, I wanted to create a huge organization and have a huge community. And sometimes I think through that experience, I've also had to experience the challenges of understanding where all my emotional energy was going to, and recognizing how important that was for me. If I was going to design a life moving forward, what would it mean to me to build a life that included me in the middle of it in
Mm.
some self-sustaining way? And it sounds so simple, but literally for like 30 something years of my life, I operated out of a desire to fulfill something for someone else. I thought it was for me, but I think my intention behind a lot of the things I did was to, seek validation from the world. And we need to be able to give ourselves permission to experiment, because, even from my cultural background and in my family, it was really hard for me to change my mind and to make a different, we live now in a world where we can have lots of options and lots of choices. But I think many of us have grown up in families where, like even in school, we had to choose what we wanted to do for university, like for the next 3, 4, 5 years of our lives, or what college we wanted to go to and what we wanted to study, without really understanding who we are. So I think there's some things that we actually need to unlearn when we're creating a life that truly resonates with us, is unlearning, this need, or I should make a decision that now I'm going to stick with for the rest of my life. And I think as you get older, you're like, I can't fuck this up anymore. I've got to make the right decision, because now I'm supposed to be really responsible. But I think the opposite is true. As we get older, we need to be more imaginative and more creative, because the more that we continually, work with old rules, outdated modes of thinking, we just kind of get more rigid and more rigid. And that's kind of sometimes when I look at for example, my mom, she's just like, why haven't you done that thing? And it's like she's been saying the same thing over and over again, and I'm like, I'm a completely different person now. That's not going to suit me anymore. And so, giving ourselves permission just to make mistakes, to fail, to not be a perfectionist. These are huge lessons that we learn on this journey of, designing our lives and finding meaning. It's just, there's meaning in every day that we need to dig into, of this ability of us just to be like, I'm alive. What am I grateful for? What do I want to accomplish today? Nothing, maybe. And this is the whole other paradox of this conversation, is this doesn't have to be about bettering ourselves. This doesn't have to be about self-improvement. This doesn't have to be about, completely reinventing ourselves to be a person that has a life of meaning and purpose. We always have. We just haven't always recognized it.
That feels like the perfect thing to finish on, because it's such a beautiful message, and I think one that we don't hear enough of. We get so caught up in our own heads, don't we, that we really think that there's so much that we should be doing and so much more that is going to give us more meaning or give us more purpose, and instead of just looking at the fact that, I mean, straight up, the extraordinary fact that we even exist at all, which is like one in I don't know how many billions of like, what a lucky break we've all got. And so I guess just coming to terms with our own sense of self-worth as something that has nothing to do with anything we do.
Well, the more that I talk to people over this period, people are returning back to simplicity, and they are recognizing, I'm so grateful when I just have a day where I feel that my inner critic is not like yelling at me every day. And how can I support whatever beautiful thing made that happen? And was that more rest? Was that more water? Was that a little bit more exercise and connection? Or just truly appreciating the fact that I'm just alive and well and healthy?
So to leave our viewers with a little something, is there a little tip that you could, suggest, or an exercise for maybe people who are keen to take on this project of self-exploration a little bit and find those moments of meaning in their everyday?
Absolutely. I would look at the last, 2 months. Like if anything has been a pressure cooker and an experience that obviously we can also talk to others about as well, and get a group of our friends together and be like, I know it was really hard, but like when people are coming out of isolation and the thought of opening up like freaked everyone out. So it's like, maybe we enjoyed it more than we thought. And it's like, what was it? I had this discussion with friends. I was like, what did we really enjoy about this period? And we enjoyed cooking for each other. We enjoyed dropping packages. I enjoyed your caramel slice that turned up on my doorstep one day. And those were the really beautiful, simple things. I was like, I really just miss this like really simple human interaction, handwritten notes, like just so basic, so simple, but packaging food in a way that looked cute and making something for someone, like that was amazing. And what was it for everyone else, that is watching this? It's I don't think it's as complicated as we think it is. We just need to reflect and pull out those little tidbits of joy.
Awesome. That sounds like a good one, and maybe something that I can pop a blog up about later this week. So it'll give you a little bit of a step-by-step process in, I guess, how to just reflect on the last couple of months, which is, I think, a really important step for everyone, because, wow, what a unique experience in our modern lives to have gone through it, and we may as well learn something from it.
Why not?
Even if it's just
would say, what else is there to do?
Yeah, exactly. So look, I mean, if I learn anything, it's probably how many bags of popcorn that I can consume whilst watching a movie. Because I'm kind of like, when you go to the cinema, they give you like a really big, I always get the large popcorn, like the hugest one, like it's absolutely mammoth. And then when you buy the packet popcorn, it's not as big. So I'm like, so technically, if I was at the cinema, I would have a few of these packets. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know how much that's of interest to everyone in terms of how much popcorn I can eat.
You know what works for you, Ash.
This is learning. And I was in popcorn, corn. It's like a vegetable. It is a vegetable.
Proud of you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in this week. Pleasure chatting to you again, as always, Mary. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you all next week. You can catch this episode on our IGTV tab. And if you've got any questions or any suggestions, feel free to drop us a DM. We'll be happy to explore some new topics next week and in the coming weeks.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.